You're listening to the Lone Star Plate Podcast with your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong.
I'm really excited to talk to you, actually. I did an interview with David Ball and Gary Nunn about your father's band, Uncle Walt's band, like last year, I think. They had a CD that was going out for Waterloo Ice House. It was like a live.
Yes.
It was awesome. Oh my gosh. So many things to say. Amazing. So it's an honor for me, man, to talk to you, to be honest.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. You got some big stuff happening. I saw the Austin Music Award nominations recently. So congratulations to you, my man.
Thank you. Nominated again. Won it several times before, and starting to think, like, are there any other string players in town? I know there are. I think the difference is that most string players, myself included, play for other people. So the other names are what you're going to see in the paper and on the marquee. And I think I'm one of the rare exceptions where the string player's fronting the band and print a lot.
That's really what it is, man. You're also, a lead singer. That's cool, right? It's like, it is different. That is different. That's what makes you so cool, man. Absolutely.
I kind of learned that a long time ago. I grew up, my dad, of course, in Uncle Walt's band was a lead singer and a front guy, and all of them they were all lead singer frontmen. But the second half of his career was all sideman work mostly. He played for everybody. And so I grew up kind of idolizing the side guy. When he would play with Lyle, I was checking out Dad on guitar, and I was checking out the steel player, and I was like, oh, those guys are amazing. And I was more geeked out and nervous to meet the side guys in the band than I was whoever was on the marquee. And so I kind of grew up doing that. And it was probably when I was like 25 and I had been doing that for like 10 years that I was really, wait a minute, the guy singing gets a lot more money and attention. I can do that.
I can do that. Is that all they do? I can do that. That's no problem. What a great, you know what? This podcast is for the side guys out there, right? I love that.
I love the side guys, and I am a side guy. Still, I am for a lot of people. And that's kind of how I've been able to make my whole career work, is that it's probably a good 50-50 split at this point between money that I make with touring with somebody else or playing studio work for somebody else versus my own band getting private parties. My band doesn't really headline anywhere. We kind of do pretty well in our residency here in Austin. But I do a lot of house concerts and a lot of, little private parties and events like that. And so, there's a path to success for all y'all listening out there without being, quote unquote, discovered.
Love that. Love hearing this stuff. Absolutely, man. Where's your residency at? Is it still at ABGB?
Yeah, we've been doing about 7 years now, every Wednesday at the ABGB in Austin. And it's going great. We have it's a dance band. Bass, drums, electric guitars, and I front it with a fiddle. And so you're going to hear everything it's mostly originals, but we do some Uncle Walt's band music too. And it's country, blues, rock and roll, pop, just anything that'll keep them dancing.
Hell yeah, man. RIP to the owner of ABGB. I think he passed away a couple of years ago.
Jensen, Mark. One of the owners.
One of the owners, correct.
He's the reason we were there. He was kind of remind me a lot of Clifford Antone in the sense that he was there every night, kind of walking around the tables, shaking hands, talking. He was the face of the franchise and real personable. We'd been playing there for a year and I didn't think much of it. And he's like, you know what next week is, right? It's like, what? It's like a year since you started your gig here. I was like, okay, cool. And then he's like, we're going to do something for it. All right. And I showed up the next day and he had this giant cake with our name on it 1 year and enough for like the whole bar, and was like handing out cake to everybody.
What?
And just made it a whole event, pictures and Facebook posts. I was like, oh, and it was special to him, but also he's a businessman, and it was very smart of him to like have something to promote. So he was,
of course,
truly a unique, good man.
No, that's awesome. My wife watched his kids for a few years, actually.
They're great. I've met them a few times too.
Yeah, absolutely. No, man. You said you got a couple kids yourself, right? How old are you, Mark?
I am about to turn 40, believe it or not. I'm 39 and I'll be 40.
You are not. No way. No fucking way. Sorry, pardon my French. Jesus.
That's what I get
I mean, my goodness, dude, what are you drinking? We all need to play fiddle, y'all. This is what keeps you young.
I think music
Wow.
is part of it. And I think, I treat myself pretty well, but I eat red meat and whiskey. And I think there's something to preservatives.
I do that too. I think that's just part of living. If I
think there's some preservatives have an effect in there. Everybody I know who's like all healthy all the way, all the time, they seem to get sick a lot. I'm just saying.
I'm with you, man. Well, like I owned a food truck in Austin for many years called Boca on Rainy Street, and South Side, where there are Barton Springs as well. I had a place on West Six too. Yeah, man, food is very important. And people have a misconception because they follow what we call the halo terms, which are like organic and this and that, which they just lie to you about. Anyway, I don't want to get into all that.
Yeah,
but it's a whole nother thing. No, that's awesome, man. I'm 43, and I actually, if I shave, I have a baby face. People never believe how old I am either. As soon as I have a little beard, a little gray, all of a sudden, oh, 40? Yeah, I can believe that. Damn, what happened? Right, what happened? I used to get carded for cigarettes and alcohol.
Once in a while. Depends on the age of the bartender.
Gosh, yeah, man. I mean, you take the cake, bro. I thought I had the baby face. You take the cake, man. That's awesome. Listen, live it up. When I was younger, I hated it because I was like, I wanted to look older. I hated it. It bothered me.
Well, people treat you differently, and you would get less respect. Like,
yes,
talking to a 17 kid, but I'm 30. I'm a grown person. I have kids and a job and a family, and I pay taxes. Don't talk to me that way.
Oh, shit. I get it, man. Absolutely. But as the older you get, you're like, thank you for the baby face, right? As the older you get, it's just even better. So, no, that's awesome, man. Wow. Wow. That's amazing. What are all the nominations you got exactly for Austin Music? You got best...
I get strings.
And strings.
It's most years I win strings, and actually I'm up for a Hall of Fame this year, which is
Hall of Fame. That's what I wanted to bring up.
Because
I think that's great.
It feels a little premature, but I'm honored, and I'll accept graciously if I win it. But there's some people in that category who have been here a lot longer than I have, and there's still time for me. I will. Talking about feeling a little older, I will definitely feel a little older if they.
I'm in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, that does. You're right. It does.
My dad is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I don't know about other members of that band. They weren't really Austin staples the way he was.
Sure.
They were for a long time. They definitely lived here and made music in Austin for a long time. But that was a long time ago. So I don't. That's one of my gripes about Austin is it seems to too easily forget its past. And I feel like other cities have done a better job of kind of preserving where the music scene came from. It didn't just fall out of nothing. It was started by not just Uncle Walt's band, but a lot of their peers, people that were here in the 70s and 80s, making it that. And I feel like ever since kind of New Austin's kind of taken over, it's just kind of like stomping out what was here. And, there's no Ernest Tubb record trial. Well, I guess there's not one in Nashville anymore either, but you still like people know who Hank Williams is in Nashville, but they don't know who Doug Stamm is here in Austin.
It's a great point, man. I've noticed the nominations. So Bob Schneider's a pretty good friend of mine, and he does the intro to our show. I've had him on the show several times. Whatever, we get along great.
I've been in his band for a long time too. He had a bluegrass band. I was in his band for like 7 years.
Oh wow, there you go.
I'm a big Bob fan too.
Yes. Oh my God, huge Bob fan.
One of the most prolific writers I've ever met.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Bob's amazing. In fact, every time we get on to talk, we never talk what we're supposed to talk about because
there's nobody better than talking about nothing.
Right. I mean, Bob is the great. I texted that the other day. I said, Bob, you literally have to be one of my most favorite people to talk to, just period, because it can we will talk for 3.5 hours and let's look at oh my God, I got to go. We got things to do. Yeah, he's amazing, man. No, that's great to hear. Well, what I was going to say about him is he was always nominated. His album would come out and you just see taking over categories, right? And then I think it was the last album potentially that he released that didn't happen, and I thought, oh, the guard is changing, right? Like these things are starting to change. And I have noticed the past nominations, just sort of some new people coming in.
I was surprised that I was still in there looking at the rest of the categories. Usually I know everybody nominated, or at least most of them, and I didn't know any of them. And not to say that, not to knock anything against who is nominated.
Of course.
Our town has doubled in size over the past several years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of new talented people here. But I was a little shocked to not see, David Grissom in the guitar category, or James McMurtry in the songwriter category.
Oh,
just like
man.
Some of the people that you're used to seeing, like you'd understand if like a few are missing, but they were all missing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I was kind of like, oh, and I don't know what that's about, but I was a little surprised.
It's I don't know, new people. I don't even know about that stuff, to be honest. Every time I try to talk to Bob, he's just like, I don't really. He just doesn't care about that stuff, man. Like he can care less. Shout out to James McMurtry. I've had him on a few times. He sang one of the most beautiful songs I ever heard in my life on the podcast. I was in tears. It's like, James, please stop. I'm not supposed to cry. That guy's amazing. Absolutely. We're interviewing Mobley on Friday. Have you heard of that guy?
Yes, he's great.
He's amazing. Really love his stuff.
There's all his accolades that he's
man, he's great. Ruthie Foster, shout out to Ruthie Foster.
Mm-hmm.
She's also amazing. I mean, Austin's just full of just amazing people, man. It kind of pisses me off a little because, like, God damn, there's just so wherever you go into in a place in Austin, it could be anywhere. You walk in, there's two people listening, but it's the most amazing thing you've ever heard. We take it for granted. It gets taken for granted in Austin a lot, I think.
Yeah, well, and you get that from the crowds too. Like whenever I go on the road and do the same show I do in Austin, people flip out like they've never seen live music before. But here, you're lucky to, like, if they even notice you just play a song and clap after it's over.
Exactly.
They clap for the dancers more than, and they're like, That's
funny. Yeah, you're right, man. It's
but
it's so interesting. It is good.
If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
It kind of is true, though, man. It kind of is. It is kind of a good. It's like what was it in the 90s? I mean, for a long time. What's that place in New York where people would go and perform and like they would just throw shit at you if you didn't do well? Oh my gosh.
You're talking about. If you hadn't asked me, I could have told you.
Oh man, for our listeners, viewers, please put that down in the comments for us. We're not live, by the way, but when they listen or watch it, what that place is. Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, it's kind of that mentality. No, you just got to really bring your A game. And man, no, that's cool. So you've been playing. I watched this cool interview with you. You've basically been, you were watching your dad. I mean, you've been playing since you were.
Yeah,
basically pick up an instrument, let's say.
Kind of. My dad used to take me to all of his shows from a very early age. I was probably a baby, but from the age of 5, I know he was just taking me to his gigs without any like extra super or adult supervision. So
he was just old days, bro.
Regulars. And I would sit at the front table with like usually Pat Marshall, this old lady that was there every week. And for like 15 years, she was there every week. Anyway, I would sit there and draw Ninja Turtles and eat food. And he kind of, I was like 5 feet away from him where the stage was, but I would just kind of sit there and hang out. And by the time I was like 7, he was taking me every Tuesday to the Continental Club where he was playing with Tony Price. And I was just kind of like running around the bar at age 7, playing pool in the back. Like just kind of just being there and was kind of looked after by the regular fans and some of the wait staff. And that was the case everywhere I went. Green Hall, I just like palled around with him to all of his gigs. And I wasn't super interested in music yet. I was more into sports at that point and art and fishing. So if he took me to Green Hall, I would, he'd open his trunk, get his fiddle and guitar out and go to Green Hall, and I'd get my fishing pole out and go down to the river and see you in 4 hours. But at the same time, I was like, at Thread Gills and Continental, I was listening. And I think that's the hardest part of learning any instrument is the language of music. And that's why like some people can play any instrument, is that because they're really good at speaking the language of music. They understand in tune and harmony and rhythm and melody. And so they can pick up anything, and it's a matter of months before they kind of figure out how to make a sound out of it. And so by the time I picked up a fiddle when I was 11, I already knew what it was supposed to sound like and what in tune and out of tune was. And I already had melodies in my head to play And so I excelled very quickly at age 11. And by the time I was 13, I had been playing for 2 years. I was sitting in with his band, and I was starting to play with Bruce Robinson and Charlie Robinson when I was like 15 or 16. And that was my first road gig, was Charlie Robinson. And just kind of it snowballed from there. I've never had a real job. I just kind of went straight from living at home and playing gigs to living on my own and playing gigs. And I went to Berkeley and Boston and came back and never looked back. And I've just been gigging ever since.
No, that's amazing. What made you want to go up to Berkeley?
I had the opportunity, and I had a lot of great mentors in my life telling me that I should take that opportunity, including members of the bands I was touring in and people that have been doing this thing for 20 something years, saying, this is going to be here when you get back. You're not missing anything. Go take this. You will regret it if you don't. And because I kind of thought like, oh man, I got this sweet gig. I'm never going to give this up. And I'm so glad I did, because they were right that, the road gets old after a while, and there's always another gig. And you only have that kind of opportunity at that age, really, to improve yourself like that. The older you get, the harder it is to get better. I'm finding I still feel like I play like I'm 20 sometimes. I'm just frozen in time. Like that's, but a lot of the great players are like, they kind of like find their sound early on, and that's who they are for most of their careers, with some exceptions, of course.
Sure.
But I really, when I got out of there and I came home, I felt like I was worse than when I went in. It was like they crammed too much knowledge in my brain. There was too many things trying to come out at once. I can remember a Bruce Robinson gig where we're playing at the Broken Spoke, and we're probably doing like a Willie Nelson song or something. And I started playing like jazz, and he's like singing a verse and just kind of side eyes me. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know where that came from. I have no idea. And it took me like a good 5 years to kind of forget what I learned. But at this point, I feel like it's come back around, and I'm better now because I went then than I would be if I had never gone.
Sure.
But it took a long time. I had to come back to Austin and hear some blues and hear some country and remember what music's all about, the camaraderie and the social scene and the fun and all that stuff. And, not just be stuck and isolated in a practice room trying to, play the coolest jazz line you can. It's very different than actually being out there and among the people and performing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That sounds like a food journey for chefs. The same thing happens. They learn all these techniques and these things, and so they want to show you on every plate they present to you.
Right.
And then you learn the key isn't to show you everything I can do with every dish. The key is to give you what you need for that dish.
Yeah.
That's it. Right. It's like a surgeon who goes in to do heart surgery. He's not like, well, let me do brain and this and that too, because I know how to do it all. No, right. I need to do this. Even though I learned all of this. Right. So I get that as a musician, you learn all these things. So you got a solo coming up. Oh yeah, they're going to hear everything I know how to do right here. Right. Yeah. Instead of, well, what does this song need in this moment for this crowd or whatever it may be. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the true enlightenment, is you come out the other top of it and give them exactly what they need. Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's awesome that you figured that out. Some people never do, to be honest with you. They never.
Well, I'm still working on it. I mean,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, it should be an endless journey, right? That would be kind of weird if it just stopped. You're like, well, I'm at my peak. This is it. I mean, what's the point? I don't know.
Almost I talk to people after shows, and my favorite comment to get is, wow, you're even better than last time I saw you. Like, when that stops happening, then maybe it is time to hang it up.
What an odd compliment.
Better. It is.
It's kind of I would never dare to say that to somebody. I'm glad you take it well.
Yeah.
It's odd to say that to somebody. Like, you look better than last time I saw you. Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
Wait a second. How did I look last time? Shit. Yeah, no, that's funny. No, that's great, man. I can imagine the compliments you get. Who are some other fiddle players or string players, as you might call them, that you sort of look up to and respect, right? Like now that are out playing and about?
Oh man, there's so many. I get my number one hero is Stuart Duncan. and he's the fiddle on. If you just look up what he's played on, it's everything. So like your favorite albums for the last 25 years, if there's fiddle on it, it's probably him.
Okay.
Some of the younger guys I like is Alex Hargraves, plays with Billy Strings. He's really great. Luke Bullas and Lyle's band. He's really great. Casey Dreesen. Whenever I meet young string players at a show that are maybe classical players and they're just beginning to improvise, and they come up and kind of ask for advice, I tell them to go YouTube Casey Dreesen and Stuart Duncan.
Wow, love that.
and that will probably call up some other things for you to go check out. Funny thing is though, that like I play fiddle, but I don't really listen to a lot of fiddle music or playing a lot of bands that have fiddle, really. Like most of my career has been playing in bands that don't have fiddle and finding a way to make my instrument sound relevant next to the electric guitars. So I play with Alejandro Escovedo. Sometimes I was in the Bodines for a while. My band is not a bluegrass or a country band. And so I probably listened to more of the blues guitar heroes than I did anything else. You know, Freddie King, Albert Collins, B.B. King, all the Kings. And Otis Rush, stuff like that, and wanted, you know, if I could play guitar like that, then I probably would have. But I played fiddle, wow. So I was trying to, like, you know, play fiddle in a manner that would kind of fit with that, you know.
But you can't play guitar.
I can, but I've got two of the best guitar players in the world in my band, so I rarely pull it out. Willie Pipkin and Marshall Hood are just phenomenal players, and there's no need for a third guitar solo after they've just played two.
No, I get it.
If one of them's out of town, I will bring out an acoustic guitar, but I really can't play electric very well. I'm okay on acoustic, but it's amazing how different of an animal they really are.
It really is. Well, because acoustic is like, you really got to lean in, I think, and electric is, really shows how much you can pull back. You know what I mean?
I play like different. Too hard to pull it out of electric, and I like my left hand might bump one of the strings, and on an acoustic you don't notice it. On electric, it's,
yeah. Bro, I get it. Absolutely, man. Yeah, that's hilarious. But you know, I'm assuming you write songs still on the acoustic, right?
I write songs on the guitar mostly, and the mandolin.
Okay, yeah, shit. How many instruments do you really play? I'm not saying live, but just, you know.
Guitar, mandolin. I'll write songs on piano sometimes. I can't really play in time on a piano, like hold a groove down.
Sure.
But I know where all the notes are, and I can like try to find a chord progression or make voicings and try to work out a part I'm stuck on. Maybe I'll start something on acoustic guitar and keep coming to this part that I can't figure out, and I'll go transfer it to piano to try to learn like what the next thing is I'm trying to find.
That's awesome, man. Wow. Yeah, it always amazes me as someone that plays one instrument. You always find out, they can tinker around on 3 or 4 or 5.
I'm always amazed at someone like Cullen who can play like steel and trumpet and cello and like things that are unrelated to each other. You know, like I can understand how someone plays a bunch of string instruments or a bunch of horns, but to like be like, you can't play steel and trumpet. It's not fair.
Right. And he's a great drummer too, just happens or something. You know, you're like, God damn it, who is this guy? Absolutely. Well, man, some people have it. Like I tell Bob, it's like, you know, some people have it, man, and you have it. I'm just like, dude, you have it. Like, you have that thing. Like, he's like, no, I think I just really believed in myself. No, Bob. Yes, that probably too, but like, you have it. You know, some people just have it, man. I don't know. You can just see it.
I remember Bob once told me, he's like, I don't think songwriting is something you can get better at. I think you're just kind of like
stuck. That's interesting. What
like you're just like who you are.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I wonder, like, because I've always thought like you can get better at singing and playing your instrument, and it's just like practice over and over again. But and maybe like reading more books helps you with writing. But I do feel like I kind of like write about as well now as I always did. And I don't know how Bob feels about himself, but he once said that in a conversation, and
that's interesting.
Kind of stuck with me.
That's well, you know, because he does that song club, right? So he writes a song a week.
He's invited me to that, and I've just always said, no way, man. There's no way I can write a song in like 6 weeks, like with my I'm just so busy with the kids and with
Sure.
everything else that I rarely have time to sit down and write a song. And there's nothing worse for me than trying to write a song under pressure. I've done it a few
Forcing
times.
it out. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's
Yeah.
terrible.
That's how he puts
stresses me out.
all the songs for his albums come from the Song Club. You
Yeah.
know? I didn't know that. That blew me away the first time he told me. I was like, oh, really? Like, it's not like, oh, okay, I do this on the side, and then when it's album time, okay, let's get some writing. No. He just picks from all those songs that he wrote and what are the best ones, and let's go with that. And I found that so fascinating. Yeah, he's a fascinating character. Yeah, with songwriting, that is interesting. So you think you've been writing more or less the same?
I mean, I think I've
different stuff,
a little
maybe.
bit.
Yeah,
I've
there you
honed it
go.
and changed my style,
Sure.
but it's pretty much the same. I've got.
What does that mean to write a better song, right? Like, what does that actually mean?
Right.
Because a song can be simple, right? It could be 1, 2, 3 chords and be
Maybe
beautiful.
better is not the right term for it, but you look at any songwriter, they have a definite style that's unique to themselves.
Yeah.
And so I think he's commenting more on you're kind of who you are. You're kind of born who you are.
I see.
And so it's just like a talent, like anything else. Like that happens to be that person's talent is to plot songs out that all sound kind of like this, that are all kind of have a thing, a vibe. And so I think that's what he means. Like you don't get better at being you. You're just you can hone it, but you're kind of born who you are.
Yeah.
And I've kind of thought that too on a greater level, like with looking at my kids' personalities, that like you're just kind of born who you are. They're so different. And like, your parents can only do so much.
Sure. And the world can only do so much, right?
Yeah. There's so many wonderful people that come from terrible backgrounds and terrible people that come from wonderful backgrounds. And you just, and the mix of the two. And, it's just kind of like, you're just kind of born who you are.
Yeah, man, that's true. You just sort of lean into it.
I was going to mention one thing about songwriting that I've started doing a lot more co-writing on the internet. That I'm more, when I get stuck now, I'm much quicker to throw my hands up and just be like, I'm just going to send this song off to a friend of mine and let them finish the words. I find melodies come really easy to me. I can write chord progressions and melodies all day long, like nothing, just like out of any genre, any, jazz or not jazz, like, whatever is called for. And then when it comes to the lyrics, I can write 10 versions of a song and not like any of them and send my melody off to a lyricist friend of mine. And the first draft, I'm like, great. And I often wonder, like, is it just because I didn't write it that I like it? Sure. That I only didn't like the other ones because I wrote it? And that's the hard part, is like, knowing if what you wrote is good or not. And
yeah, man, I don't think anybody. Well, what do they say about like sports players, for instance, right? They say a good player or a great player will tell everyone how great they are. Like a legend, they tell them, right? Like the world talks about them on their own, right? And when it comes to songwriting, that's interesting. It's like, it's really difficult to judge your own stuff, right? Because it's art, right? It's art, so it's very subjective. So it is kind of difficult to know. I think it is good to just bounce it off of people and get their opinion on it. Absolutely, man. I don't
the guitar player in my band, Willie Pipkin, is that we've been playing together since I was like 14 and he was 21. He's like my best friend, and he's kind of my bullshit-o-meter. And so
there you go.
he hears everything first, and I can count on him for an honest response of like the spot I might need to check out.
That's what you need. Absolutely.
That's the guy that told me to cut off my ponytail. He's like, dude, did Frank Sinatra ever have a ponytail?
That's a true friend. That is, love it, man.
Like, all right, fair enough.
Oh shit! I'm trying to grow out a ponytail myself, man. It's the first time I ever had long hair.
I mean, I had another one 10 years later during COVID. I grew another one, and then I cut it off. I was like, man, why did I do that again?
Well, I've never done it, so I think that's why I'm growing my hair out. I've never had long hair. I've always had pretty short hair.
Maybe it'll work for you.
My mother always. This is going to sound so ridiculous, but my mother always loved Steven Seagal when I was growing up, and she wanted me to have a ponytail like that. So there may be something. He's a musician too. Is he really?
Yeah, if you ever talk to Red Volkart, ask him about playing with Steven Seagal.
Steven Seagal's a musician?
Yeah, I think he plays like harmonica or guitar or something.
I mean, what? So he's a sheriff in Louisiana. He's a martial artist, actor. I did not know.
I just know he hired Red Volkart to play some guitar at one point.
That is hilarious. Wow. Wow. Okay, my mind's a little blown here, to be honest with you. Yeah, that is crazy. Have you ever heard of, sorry to jump around here. This is what I do. Have you ever heard of Max Johnson?
No.
He played with Wilco, and then he played with the Gourds. Have you heard of the Gourds?
Very well, yeah.
So he played with the Gourds. He's not with Kevin anymore. But I know for me, he was the best fiddler I ever saw. He was the best fiddler player I ever saw in person.
I've probably met him, and
I bet you have. No, please. I mean, he's very he's very introvert. He doesn't talk to people. He avoids people, so that wouldn't put him past me.
At many a Gord's show, talking to Kevin and the band, and I just chat with names.
He wouldn't be talking to you. He'd be in a corner, not wanting to talk to anybody. He's very to himself. He hates people. He hates talking to people. He did a solo album, and I helped him on it. He recorded part of my house. I sang some background for him, vocals and stuff like that, and really just like forcing him to get this album out. It's like, dude, you're amazing, and he just doesn't think anything of himself, to put it out. And I often wonder, like, how many people is that held back in music, right? That just don't have any faith in themselves at all, even with the world around them telling them, no, you're good. This is good. I don't know, like at what point does confidence too much? And right, like how do you balance that? Like believing in yourself and not over believing in yourself, because then you could start to play bad stuff. Right. And you don't know it or whatever. I don't know.
It's a roller coaster of extremes. I don't know what it is for everybody. I can only talk from my own experience, but after like a really great show or for me, music too is like, I'll borrow a quote from John Batiste and give him credit where it's due. He said music for him is a spiritual journey. And I was like, well, that's why I do it. Because I was thinking like, why do I do this? Because it's not for money, and I could give two shits about fame. And so, in fact, I would rather not be famous. I think famous people have it really rough sometimes.
I agree.
What he said spoke to me. He's like, yeah, that's why I do it. That's why I get as much satisfaction out of practicing alone and getting, the best I can be as I do performing. It's the same for me. And so, I ride that roller coaster of extremes of like, have a really good show and I will feel like I played really well and just like, wow, I am getting better. I'm great. Followed by a night where I didn't feel very good and get kind of depressed for a day about like, oh, I've been doing this 20 years and I am no better than when I started.
Yeah.
And so I feel like on those high days, you kind of like check out your songs and you're like, yeah, I am really good. And on the low day, you check them out and you're like, this is garbage. And then you have to kind of have the wherewithal to know that neither of those are true and that it's somewhere in the middle, and kind of like, be honest with yourself. And for me, listening to a song, like maybe I'll make myself a little demo of a new song on my phone, and I'll listen to it at different points of the day or different days. So like maybe the first thing in the morning, fresh ears, or maybe right before going to bed, or in the middle of the night, or driving around in the car and be like, is this, what I think it is? And yeah, so that's kind of me, is like taking samples at different times.
That's a great idea, actually, to be honest. Yeah, because you're in a different mindset. No, I get that completely. So, you probably feel like your best work is ahead of you then. Right? You're still young. You're still young as hell.
I do. My last record is 10 years old, and I'm so over it. Wish I could redo the whole thing, which is, I think, how you're supposed to feel about every record you make.
I'm sure, of course.
Like
I'm sure.
3 years of it being done, you're just like, oh, I can sing, write, and play better now. I want to redo the whole thing. And so I've had my next record done in my head for like 5 years, but I don't have time with the kids. But the youngest will be in kindergarten in September, and I hope to start recording another album then. And I've got a bunch of albums in my brain. I want to do with my rock band, like a full band album. I want to do an instrumental record. I want to do kind of a country / bluegrass acoustic sounding record. And I would like to do an Uncle Walt's band tribute record too.
Oh man, that would be sick. Yeah.
And so I got my work cut out for me.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, that's great. That's great, man. To be honest with you, a lot of people don't know where they want to go or the things that they want to do. And I think that can impede them for sure. That's good, man. You got a vision of, what's touring like right now?
There's no touring for me. I go out on like 3 long weekends a year.
Okay.
Usually with the Waybacks, the band that I played in for going on 20 years now, based out of San Francisco. And we kind of go to our 3 spots where we do well and have a great time, catch up with each other, make a bunch of money and go home, Thursday through Sunday kind of thing. And I've got like 3 or 4 bands, including the South Austin Jug Band, that get together once a year for something. I do a thing with Ian Moore once a year. And so that's kind of it. I try to be home for my family, and I'm kind of daytime dad. My wife works from the house, and play locally. And that's kind of what I see happening for the foreseeable future. And I'm good with that. When people say like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It's like, well, maybe, the gigs are a little better and pay a little more, but I'm kind of doing it. I'm making a living playing music and to be home with my family. And so I feel good. For me, like I said, it's that spiritual quest of like trying to always get better, writing more songs, honing my craft and making albums and putting them out there. And so I want to keep doing that. I just like being creative and working on something. I feel like I always got to be moving. I'm not happy when I stand still for too long. So
sure,
I gotta get back in the studio and get working on these 4 albums in my head. And in the meantime, what keeps me going is when I do have free time, I pick the guitar off the wall and work on one of the songs I want to record. And I'm always changing a chord here and there, or a word here and there, or changing a bridge or something, or coming up with some cool idea for maybe a string intro to a song that has nothing to do with that song, but just is an intro. And so I'm always kind of like, before an album is made, I get in album mode where I am kind of obsessed with the 12 songs I want to record and how to present them and what instrumentation I'm going to use and how the arrangement's going to go, and acoustic or electric and all that kind of stuff. Whereas I feel like a lot of songwriters are like, I haven't written my songs yet. I'm going to keep writing until that great song comes up. For me, I feel like the song's already there. It's how am I going to present them?
That's interesting.
And Beatles are one of my favorite bands, a lot of people's favorite band, I guess. And one thing that strikes me when I listen to them is how did they figure out that song was just going to be strings and vocal and not full band? Or how did they figure out that was going to be the drum part? Because I feel like any song I write is either going to be like a straight 8-beat or a shuffle, and the drummer is going to know exactly what to do because that's what everybody's always done. But how did they know, like, no, this has some weird melodic drum part and bass line? And so for me, going back to those songs I've already written and trying to figure out, like, what am I going to tell the drummer to play to make this cool?
Yeah, man. That's interesting. Well, a song could be a story, right? It's like, what does this story need? What characters does it need? I.e. the musicians, right? Like, what does it need in there? And I think a lot of it really just comes down to choice. I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think it's just whatever you want. It's like, I just think that is the frustrating part about recording music or writing music. Is it can go a bazillion ways. So
sometimes I write a song as a ballad, and then I think like, wait a minute, I have too many ballads, so I double time it and add some funky bass line. I'm like, wait, well now the song works better like this. Totally. So I'm like, well, what other ballads have I written that would sound better as an upbeat rock song? And then I go back and I'm like, wait a minute, that rock song sounds better as a ballad. Yeah. And so like, it's just like it's an endless can of worms to open when you open Pandora's box like that. And that's been the hardest part for me is like, how does this song supposed to go?
Sure.
and my band is, I think, getting annoyed with me because I keep showing up and be like, all right, guys, before the show, I'm like backstage, I'm like, we're going to play this song on halftime slow. Like, what? Or like, guys, I rewrote the chords to the bridge. Here's a chart. When we get to the bridge, play these chords instead. And I use ABGB as our rehearsal. And I love that. I will show up and I'll be like, tonight we're going to play this song as a rumba. And then like, just like, keep the bass and the drums on their toes, like change the groove on this song.
Yeah. I like that, man. I think that's cool. Yeah, again, I really don't, I think a song can just go a million ways. I know every song I've ever written, I send to somebody else who is like not for them to necessarily, yeah, I do want them to change it. What would you do to this song? What would you do here? What would you do that? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I would have never thought of that. I would have never gone there in my mind. I find that fascinating, that sort of collaboration. Right.
If you look up Beatle covers, you will hear like 500 versions of the same song in every language with every instrumentation, from classical piano solo to like big band swing, whatever. And you can do any song in any manner you want. And so it kind of becomes of like, well, what am I presenting? And my band is already kind of all over the map between blues, country, jazz, rock and roll, whatever, psychedelic. And it's like, what am I going to present? What am I? And you get to choose. And I haven't chosen. And so all my albums are all over the map. And that's probably my Achilles heel is the I've never been categorized. And the moment somebody describes me as something, like someone said like bluegrass crooner Warren Hood, I was like, well, never doing either of those again.
Yeah.
I will not play bluegrass or croon. Thank you very much. And so I just, I'm all over the map. And so, anytime we open for a band, it's very apparent that it's like, oh yeah, I'm not Americana or rock or blues or I'm none of these things. And so, I listen to it all. I like it all. And I am not afraid to combine them all into one thing.
That's awesome, man. That's just a love for music and performing and being with your buddies and and playing live, I would imagine, right? Like that's it. It's the crowd almost disappears in some sense, Yeah.
And it's interesting for each member of the band. Like I think the drummer has a lot of fun with me because it's like he's got to play a blues shuffle on one thing and then a samba on the next song.
100%.
Play a New Orleans funky drumline groove on the next thing.
Yes.
And it's not just like a blues gig or a rock gig or whatever.
Yes.
Every song's a different feel.
You can zone out like that very easily, right? As a player, for sure. No, man, that's awesome. Look, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Like I'll just ask a couple more questions. First of all, where can people check out your stuff? Like what's the easiest way for people to, look into you here?
My website, warrenhood.com. We do play every Wednesday at the ABGB. There's a lot of YouTube clips up of us. We recently played an acoustic show at the Mucky Duck. And that's up on YouTube already. And I'm on Facebook, but most of the Facebook posts are about my kids. So
yeah, Mucky Duck. Okay, that's what it's called. I thought it was called McNoggins. I've been calling
they call it McGonagall's Mucky Duck. And like if you look it up on the internet, it's like McGonagall's Mucky Duck, but people call it the Mucky Duck.
No wonder Bob was looking at me.
Oh, and that New York club's the Apollo.
The Apollo. Apollo Theater. Yes.
Live at the Apollo.
Yes, live at the Apollo. Yes, that same sort. Yes, exactly. Okay, yeah. I kept calling it McNoggins, and Bob was like, yeah, Bob was like, yeah, McNoggins. And I was like, what's wrong with that? I didn't get it till right now. I wasn't saying it right. And he didn't correct me, so I would sound like an idiot. Because I
get the shepherd's pie at McNoggins.
Oh yeah, McNoggins. But he's just gonna call it McNoggins now. That's the new name. We're gonna change it. That's great. What a great place. I actually saw a part of that live performance you played. I watched it on Facebook. That was great, man.
Sweatiest shows I've had in a long time. It was so hot in there, and I. Was that a short sleeve shirt and everything?
Yeah. You couldn't tell from our side. So, is it all the lights? Is it the?
It was just all the bodies in there, and it was wintertime, so they didn't have the AC on, and all the bodies warmed up the room.
Yeah.
And it was sweltering.
Little sauna. No, I love that. Okay, cool. And when are the Austin Music Awards? When does that happen?
They happen around South by Southwest in March. I think voting is closed now.
Yeah, voting is closed. Yeah, because the nominations are out. And Well, well, man, that's going to be awesome for you. However you look at it, it's still a great accomplishment, and
Thank you.
just great to be surrounded by other musicians like that. Maybe in your head you're like, oh, I don't belong here, but let me tell you something, man, you do belong there. So
Thank you.
You really do. This has been an absolute honor to talk to you. The time flew by. I always love podcasts like this. I know the conversation just flows, just goes, baby.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, you got it, dude. Your music is great. I've been listening to a lot of it. You're amazing
Thank you very much.
on the strings, bro. Like it's ridiculous. It really is. You can see yourself get lost in it. I can see you getting lost in there, and you're on that spiritual journey.
That's it.
It's awesome. It really is. It's what we want as fans, and you're a fan too of music, right? You want genuine, you want authenticity, and that's because you can't fake that, right?
Right.
You can learn everything else. You can learn, you can study, whatever. But that is just something you have or you don't.
I just stay true to what makes me happy and what I want to do, and I never let anybody tell me what to wear and how to sing and what song to sing, and just kind of follow my own path wherever it goes.
Unless you got a ponytail, and then it's like, I'm just kidding.
Well, you always got to have a good friend in your corner to tell you the truth.
Apparently, I don't have a good friend. It's like Patrick.
Yeah. You
No,
don't have
man,
an ulterior motive.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, man, my best of luck to you the rest of the year, and best of luck to you on that, and touring and new songs and new albums. I'm sure it's all going to come to fruition. And just shout out to your dad and his band too, man, and the impact they made. It's really been a lot for a lot of us out here as fans.
So everybody to look up Uncle Walt's band, and members are Walter Hyatt, David Ball, and Champ Hood.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Yeah. Unbelievable. So thank you so much, man. My best to you and your family. Please try to stay warm. Snowpocalypse Part 2. I think Austin's getting it a little worse than Dallas, to be honest.
It's beautiful if you're indoors and don't have to be out there.
Yeah. Yes. And just shout out to all the people that are having to work in this and take care of the cities and those sorts of things. We couldn't do it without them. So yeah, thank you to those people. So thank you again, man. This has been amazing. Again, an honor for me, and so excited to share this and get this out there, man. What a great conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, this was awesome, man. Thank you so much, brother. Have a good one. All right, brother.
You've been listening to the Lone Star Plate podcast with your host, Patrick Scott Armstrong. For more info, go to lonestarplate.show.